When people think about the fall of Rome, they usually imagine chaos coming from the outside. Barbarian armies entering through the gates, legions collapsing on distant frontiers, emperors poisoned in palace halls. It looks like a dramatic, sudden, and violent scene. But these were not the only reasons empires collapse. They rot from within first, quietly, and in that decay, one of the most destructive forces is always the same: money. Rome did not fall only because of invasions or bad emperors. It fell because its monetary system collapsed. When money stops working, everything connected to it begins to break down. What makes this unsettling is that it does not belong only to the ancient world. The same logic applies to modern economies that believe they can manipulate money without paying a price. For centuries, the backbone of the Roman economy was a single coin, the silver denarius. It began to be minted around the 3rd century BCE and was almost pure silver. Its weight was fixed, its metal was real. Roman soldiers were paid with it. Merchants trusted it. Ordinary people saved silver. The denarius was not just a medium of exchange, it was the physical form of trust. As long as people trusted Rome, they trusted its money. As long as money held its value, the empire functioned. But running an empire is expensive. Armies must be paid. Roads, fortresses, and aqueducts must be built and maintained. Borders expand a little more every decade. By the 2nd century CE, Rome was under pressure from every direction. Germanic tribes were pushing from the north. Powerful rivals stood in the east. Internal rebellions became more frequent. Military spending increased every year, but tax revenues did not grow at the same pace. Raising taxes further increased the risk of revolt, so emperors turned to a quieter solution, a path that seemed easy in the short term. They chose to debase the currency. Debasing money is simple but dangerous. You mint more coins, but each one contains less silver. The coin looks the same, it carries the same face, but its real value has fallen. Under Augustus, the denarius was about 95% silver. Under Caracalla, that ratio fell to around 50%. By the middle of the 3rd century, almost no silver remained. What had once been solid metal became bronze-coated with a thin layer of silver. People noticed. They felt it in their hands. They heard it in the sound it made when it hit the table. Trust began to erode. When trust disappears, inflation follows. Prices rise because money is no longer tied to real value. A measure of wheat that once cost 1 denarius now costs several. Wages lagged behind prices. Savings lost their meaning. This was not an abstract economic problem. It radically changed daily life. Soldiers began demanding higher pay just to survive. Merchants refused debased coins. Barter returned to local markets. Gold and foreign currencies replaced Roman money in serious transactions. As trust collapsed, emperors minted even more coins. They believed quantity could replace value. It never can. Rome entered a vicious cycle. Debasement led to inflation. Inflation required more spending. More spending led to more debasement. Money no longer represented accumulated labor or trust. It became a political instrument. The more the state abused it, the faster society looked for ways to escape it. The system turned into an empty shell. This decay exploded during what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. For nearly 50 years, Rome lived in constant instability. Civil wars, plagues, invasions. Emperors rose and fell at terrifying speed, sometimes killed by their own soldiers within months. Beneath the political chaos lay a collapsed financial system. Taxes were collected in money no one trusted. Farmers abandoned their land to avoid taxation. Trade networks fragmented. The Roman economy shrank and localized. The empire still existed, but it no longer functioned as a unified system. The state responded in the only way it knew: force. Price controls were imposed. Labor was bound by law. In the early 4th century, Emperor Diocletian issued an edict fixing prices for over 1,000 goods and services. Violators were punished with death. It failed completely. Black markets exploded. Official trade collapsed. No law could give value to worthless money. People learned this quickly. Eventually, Rome abandoned the denarius altogether. A new gold coin, the solidus, was introduced. It brought a degree of stability, especially in the Eastern Empire, and remained in use for centuries. But in the West, the damage was irreversible. The economic core of the empire had been hollowed out. Armies could no longer be reliably paid. Trade had fractured. Trust had vanished. Rome did not fall in a single moment. It unraveled slowly. When money collapses, everything collapses with it. Contracts stop working. Trade slows. Armies weaken. States lose legitimacy. Monetary crises do not just reflect collapse, they accelerate it. Money alone did not destroy Rome, but the collapse of its monetary system amplified every other problem. This pattern did not end with Rome. After the First World War, Germany printed money to escape debt. Hyperinflation followed. Savings were wiped out. Social despair fed extremism. Zimbabwe followed the same path decades later. The time was different. The logic was the same. States debase money to cover costs. Trust collapses. Ordinary people pay the price. Modern states no longer scrape silver from coins. They print paper. They expand balance sheets. They manipulate interest rates. The mechanism has changed, but the outcome is familiar. Since the abandonment of the gold standard, currencies have slowly lost purchasing power. Banknotes look the same. Their value does not. The uncomfortable truth is this: inflation is not an accident, it is a policy. A silent tax that transfers value from those who work and save to those closest to power. Rome learned this lesson too late. Money is not just an economic tool. It is a social contract. When that contract is broken, society fractures. Barbarians at the gates can end an empire, but the real destruction always begins in the treasury. Rome's monetary crisis was not an ancient story. It was a template. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes with ruthless precision. When money stops being real, society itself begins to dissolve. And that truth has never changed.